Welcome, everybody, to another edition of The Life Between All or Nothing. I'm Scott J.
I'm Mary Kay.
And we are your hosts. We're doing something a little different tonight. We invite you to please leave your comments. We will read them, but we are not live tonight. Tonight, we're doing a recorded show that we're doing earlier in the day because as we talk about our topic, you understand I'm actually taking a night for me to spend with my daughter who is visiting from out of town, and it's just it's important that I do that for myself, So that's why Mary Kay has agreed, and I appreciate it. That we'll just do a quick recording of this show and then share it with you. And we will be back next week. And I don't know what we're going to bring you, but I guarantee it's going to be good. How's that?
We'll talk about your self-care night.
We'll talk about it. Yes, of course. So what are we talking about today, Mary Kay? We are talking about self-care. We are talking about self-care and taking time for yourself. And that might be rest. It might be fun. It might be adventure. It might be curling up with a book. But time for yourself is so important, isn't it, Mary?
It is. It is important. And these days, and I can say this about North America, we live in this culture where overwork is rewarded, right? You get status or accolades or money or whatever, and so much like overwork is put up on this pedestal as something that is meant to be strived for. And I used to be one of those people that thought,
right,
work hard, and then at some point, and we'll get into this later, but I had a complete breakdown due to not just anxiety, but also burnout. I was burnt out.
Where does this come from? This idea that you have to work 12 or 15 hours or 18 hours in a day, 7 days a week, and is it like a false sense of the more you do something, the better you are at it? I mean, I'm not sure where comes from, but you are absolutely right. Everybody's always like, work harder, work more, work more, work more.
Mm-hmm.
But I see it as a huge, not always, but in most cases, I see this as your income might go up, your status might go up, but your quality of life is in the toilet.
Yeah. And I know people right now, I know someone who's making $250,000 in salary and doesn't have the time to spend it. I'm like, what's the point of making all that money when you don't have time to spend it or to take care of your family, like be with your family, spend quality time with your family. It's like, what exactly are you getting out of it? And status is definitely one of those things, but one day you will retire. If you live to retirement, that is, because overwork can have significant physical impact. And I know for me, it did. When I had my burnout almost 10 years ago now, it presented itself physically, and that's what got me to pay attention in the first place. And I did enjoy the accolades, and I did enjoy being patted on the back as the person that had differentiated themselves from the pack, right?
Right.
I think that's part of it as well, until I realized that the way for me to differentiate myself and enjoy myself and really excel in my career was to actually take care of myself.
Absolutely. It's funny because there's professions that actually monitor this. If you're a truck driver, you can only drive so many hours in a given 48 hours. You can only drive so many hours or in a given 24 hours. And if they catch you driving past that time, you can get ticketed or lose your license. A lot of things can happen because they say you've got to have a certain amount of time off. They do that with truck drivers. They do that with doctors and nurses. They do that
Yeah,
with
first responders. Yeah.
first responders. Absolutely. But then everywhere else, it's like, keep going until you drop.
Until you
And,
drop.
and you drop. But you just give up so much. I don't want people to think that we're anti-progress or success. Certainly not. Listen, I'm building my own business. I work probably more hours than a lot of people do. I'm constantly on call with things that we have to deal with.
Mhm.
But I also know that when the opportunity comes for me to spend some time and take a break, I will allow myself to do that. This goes back to something my mother taught me when I was very young and going to school. If you go to school every day, you are allowed every once in a while to take what my mom called a mental health day. You don't have to be sick to
Mm.
stay home. You could just be burned out. You could be, and I learned early before my addiction kicked in, and then I lost all those lessons, and then they came back to me again later. But
Mhm.
I learned early on that if you start getting burned out, you're no good to what you're doing anyway. So
Yeah.
she allowed us to take these mental health days, and that was
That's
really
brilliant.
kind of a cool lesson,
That's a brilliant lesson. And I think you brought up something, right? Going into burnout or starting to feel burnt out. Why not do the self-care so that it's preventive maintenance, right? Like we take our vehicles in for oil changes. We don't wait until the engine seizes before we take care of the car.
Yeah,
We actually
really.
go in and we do these things. And so why not schedule those kinds of things for yourself? And it can look like, okay, something that's preventive, and then there are other things that when you do feel like you're getting anxious or overworked or something, um, that it's dealing with it in the moment. Like, what have some tools that you can deal with things in the moment, and then have the preventive side as well, because it's the preventive stuff especially that's going to help you to respond, um, in a more positive way to no matter what comes your way. So something in crisis, I know myself right now in the state that I'm in, if there were to be a crisis, I know that I would react calmly. I know that I would do what needs to get done, and I wouldn't completely fall into a puddle of mush because I've already got all these other things up to here. Um,
Yeah.
Preventive is huge,
But you know
huge
what? That's not
practice.
something that it's not something anybody talks about is preventative health, mental
Yeah,
health. We talk
yeah,
about preventative health. And like you said,
yeah.
oh yeah, change the oil in the car. You can wait until the engine seizes or until all the lights come on in the car telling you that, you're about to spend a whole lot of money. Or you can
Mhm,
every 5,000 miles or 6,000 or 7,000 miles, whatever it is now, go in and get the oil changed and improve the life of your car. They tell us to get a mammograms or to get colonoscopies, which
mhm,
are a big pain in the ass, really. They tell you to do those kind of things. Men get prostate exams when they get older. And they say preventative medicine, do that. Get checkups every once in a while. Get your eyes checked. All
mhm.
these things. But who has ever told you to check your mental health? To take some
Yeah,
time, evaluate yourself, maybe go see a professional, or maybe just talk to somebody who's learned, who knows some of these things, and see how you're feeling mentally, and recognize when mentally you're starting to run down. Recognize that
mhm,
it's been, I had to look back at one point. I had to look back and say, I haven't taken a day off in 3 years. And,
mm.
I think maybe I had like one sick day, but I hadn't taken a day off to do anything fun. And it was very difficult for me to do that once I got into this mode of never taking time off. But what I recognize is
Yeah,
if
did
I
you feel
just take
guilty?
I felt guilty. I felt like nothing's going to get done
Yep,
if I go. And, I don't want to go spend the money. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And, it was just a trap I fell into. And I was getting more and more mentally exhausted
mhm.
and not recognizing that if the body was still going, the mind will keep up. I'll be fine. It's no big deal. But I did. I had like you were talking about. You come to a point where you almost have a breakdown, and it's like I've got to take care of me. And what I learned for me is it's good to take a long weekend every month or every couple of months, like every other month. Take a long weekend, take an extra 2 days, and take a long weekend, and just kind of recharge the batteries. Sometimes it's staying at home and painting or playing guitar. Sometimes it's going to hang at the beach for a couple of days or just doing some silly things with friends or something. That's all I need. But we don't
Mm,
do that. And nowhere does it teach us to take care of ourselves mentally.
yeah,
So
it's
what do you
true.
think?
It's so true because, our show last week was about having the courage to make changes,
Yeah.
getting rid of that fear and or doing it anyway in spite of that fear. And having the courage to make yourself a priority is so important. And I say courage to make yourself priority because some people think it's selfish. Some people think it might have something to say about you and your self-care. They might talk about it being a selfish thing, and I disagree. It's not selfish. It is self-care. That's an entirely different thing. And the more that you can take care of yourself, then the more available in a healthy way to take care of other people. You and I are both, right? Service to others is our
Yeah.
commitment. And for us to be able to be at the top of our game in service to others, we have to have that courage to make ourselves a priority. And it doesn't have to be something big. Although I did do something big last weekend. I
Yes.
am back
Yep.
in
Yeah.
town. Oh my goodness. I went away. I needed to get So I didn't just want time off. I wanted to take a little bit of a vacation. It was a mini vacation. I went up to Huntsville, Ontario. So I went up north. And yeah, that was one of the roads, one of the stretches, driving the
It looks like
sky.
it just
Oh,
that that's one of those roads looks like it just goes on forever and ever and ever.
oh, it does. It does. So we were on the south end of Algonquin Park, which I can't remember how many acres it is, but it's massive, massive, one of our biggest parks in Ontario. And one of the things that I really wanted to do, because I heard there was a place up there called Muskoka Goat Away, goats. I wanted to go walk with the goats because I love nature and having a chance. Yep, that's my goat River. Oh, he was so cute. And he chose me. He decided that
Now wait
he
a minute.
wanted me. Mm?
Is that a full-size goat? Are they all that small?
That one is full size. Yeah, the breed of goat or the species of goat that River is, that's how big he's going to get. Maybe a little bit bigger. So she had the
He's
woman
so
that runs
cute.
Muskoka. Yeah, he was so cute and so affectionate. Oh my God, so affectionate.
And so
It was amazing.
what is the point of doing this? Is it supposed to
So
be good for your mental health or something, or what is it for?
yeah, so for me, I mean, I found the website and I took a look and it was, a bunch of people book their goat walk and they get assigned a goat with a leash and the leader takes us on a wooded trail through nature. And nature for me is something that really grounds me. And you get to experience these beautiful goats. They want to play, they want to walk, they want you to pet them and nuzzle with them. And you're also out in nature in these beautiful tall trees. And last weekend there was a lot of snow, so it was nice to walk through the snow. It's such a good way to unplug. So unplugging is good for our mental health and just being grounded, like literally you're grounded in the moment. You're not thinking about what happened yesterday. You're not thinking about what's going to happen next week. It was a matter of experiencing the present and just feeling calm, peace, and joy in those moments. It was beautiful, Scott. I highly recommend a trip to northern Ontario.
And I just want to tell people there was a moose sighting
Yeah.
Yep, that picture of the moose on the sign, that was the only sighting of mooses. Mooses,
Yeah.
meeses,
I didn't see
moose,
I didn't see
moose.
any moose. No moose. But it
Um,
was fun to think at any minute a moose could pop out of the tree line onto the road. It was kind of neat
yeah,
to see those signs as that reminder.
or a bear. Lots of wildlife up there. Um, now, like I said, when I was a kid, I learned a little bit about self-care. Then I forgot it as I got older and I
Yeah.
started like getting crazy. This is relatively new for you to take care of yourself this way too, isn't it? I want
Mhm.
people to know that these aren't things that we grew up like Om and all Zen and everything. We both had to go through very difficult times to get to the point where we felt we were worth taking care of or for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there and you feel like, well, that's good for you guys, but I've been doing this too long. No, because this is all recent for us too. I'm
It
just saying
is
recently in
recent.
the last couple, especially in the last couple of years, a lot of my lessons has come to me about taking care of myself and exploring who I am and trying new things and taking those breaks from the stress and everything else just to be and to be okay. But this is again relatively new for you too,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. It is fairly recent. Since that breakdown I had 10 years ago. And even then I didn't completely learn my lesson. Although that was where I first found mindfulness. So not quite meditation, but mindfulness, being in the present, ta- taking my dog out for a walk, feeling what my feet felt like on the sidewalk, heel to toe, looking around me at the neighborhood and seeing the trees and noticing things that I never noticed before because I was always in such a rush. And, once I did find self care and find that it was something important to me and important for me, then I didn't just have a full time job. I opened my photography business. I opened my life coaching business and also more recently freelance writing. So I do those three businesses plus my full time job, and I still make time for self care because I wouldn't be able to do it without self care.
You brought up a really good point about mindfulness, and just to remind people, mindfulness is something you hear a lot about. Not many people
Mhm.
actually explain what it is. And if we could just put it as simple as this, being aware of where you are and who you are and what you are at this moment, not what you're going to be tomorrow, not what happened to you yesterday, where you are right now. Those are those times when for you, it was walking on the sidewalk. For me, it's my toes in the sand at the beach and listening to the waves and smelling the ocean and being so in that
Mm,
moment that it becomes more than just a sensation. It becomes something that moves me. um so we talk about these things and I'm going to tell you, my hand to God. If 10 years ago you had said to me, you need to be mindful and feel the breeze on your face and feel the sand between your toes, I would have told them to get their hippie butts off my front yard. I,
me too. Me too.
I would have said, that's fine for you freaks and all these people, but I'm a busy guy with responsibilities. You don't understand. And I wouldn't have listened to that. And so please, if you're sitting at home thinking, oh, Scott and Mary, yeah, that's all well and fine, a couple of hipsters you are, but try it.
Yeah, try
Find
it.
something that lights you up and be in that moment. Um, I can't imagine how many things in my life I missed. I walked right past
Mm,
moments and
yeah.
miracles and just experiences that I walked right past because I wasn't present in the moment. And, you know, sometimes that's the break you need. Sometimes just taking a break from work, walking outside for 10 minutes in the fresh air and
Yep.
experiencing that. And then you could go back in and it's amazing how refreshing it is. It's an amazing experience. That's self-care too. Self-care doesn't mean you have to go to a freaking spa, you know, or dance with goats. You don't have to do that stuff. Sometimes self-care is simply saying, I've got to get out of this cubicle, or I've got to get out of this fluorescent lighting, or I've got to do this. I
Mhm.
got to get some fresh air for a few minutes, walk around the building once, sit and have a cup of coffee on the grass or something. I know it sounds
Mhm.
hipster doofus kind of thing, but this is the stuff that centers us and grounds us and makes us even more effective with the work. Why
Yeah.
can Mary Kay do 4 jobs now and still have time? Because when you are present, you are more efficient and you get more done in less time. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
That's a that is a brilliant description. You're right. Because the more effective we are, you're right. We can do more things, quality things in less time, and then that leaves us time for other things. And self-care doesn't, like you said, you rhymed off a few things there. It doesn't have to be something big. It doesn't have to be like what I did, going away for 3 days. There's so many small things that you can do that you can implement into your daily routine. So, for example, my I would say that my top 5 are just stopping and listening to music for 3 minutes. Now, I have a happy playlist, a list of songs that I know will uplift my mood. Um, so music is one thing. Maybe massaging myself, massaging my own shoulders. Do that for 3 minutes. Even if you're sitting at a bus stop, or you're at your desk and you're working and you're in between 2 Zoom calls, massage, hug yourself. It feels good, and you'll be surprised at how that stacks up. So, massaging myself, music, taking a quick walk out in nature, unplugging from my screens, um,
Yes.
creativity. Creativity is a new one for me, in that I've just started drawing again after not drawing since I was a teenager. And that I lose myself on this blank piece of paper. I just lose myself. And it feels so good. I feel recharged afterwards. So it doesn't have to be something big. Now I'm going to add one more to that top 5. Excuse me. Boundaries. So setting boundaries with other people, um, blocking off time in your calendar for yourself, whatever boundaries that you can set for yourself, visible to other people, that makes your time that much more valuable. It reminds you that you can say no to people.
Yes.
You can say, I'm not available at that time, no matter how much you want to help them. They need help, okay. But maybe you just can't do it right now. And it's all about filling your own cup. And sometimes you've got to set those boundaries. So boundaries is a form of self-care, something that I'm getting better at. I'm not perfect
Yes.
at setting boundaries, but I am getting better. What about you, Scott? What are your top 3 or 4 or 5
Well, I
things
love
that you do?
I love the boundary thing because that's
Yeah.
important. And even if it's things that I want to do, sometimes I have to limit myself because
Mm,
I can't get it all done. And yes, I want to do that, and I want to do that, and I want to do that. And sometimes the boundary isn't saying I'm not going to do it. Sometimes the boundary is going to say it's going to have to wait. It's
mhm,
going to have to wait until I actually have time to, because I do want to get to it, but it can't be done right now because all I do is create tension when I do that. So even if they're good things, sometimes it's not about saying no. Sometimes it's about saying not right now, because right now my plate is full. Let me finish
yeah,
it and then I'll move on. But yeah, for me, I mentioned, getting fresh air is really big. Um,
yeah,
like you, music. I think even you and I laugh because I think a lot of your happy playlist is my happy playlist as well. We share a lot of the same music. And
mhm,
Duran Duran, if nobody's got that
yeah,
on their playlist, come on, you got to do it. Rio, but music, art, and creativity certainly is a good way for me to self care and to feed my creativity. It's not only taking a break; it's feeding a part of me that needs to be fed. See, your creativity doesn't get to
mhm,
get fed when you're going to work and they're saying, we need these charts and we need these numbers and we need this and we need that. And it's like, there's no room for me in there, but it's a job I have to do. So I got to make sure I do
mhm,
jobs also, like the drawing and the painting and the music, that feed a part of my body and my soul, and fulfill me. It's taking a break from one thing, but plugging into another that I have. I'll tell
Hmm.
you something else that really is a great way to break away from your world and stuff and to take that time. Start a conversation with a total stranger about something that has got nothing to do with your work or anything else. Just when you're standing in line at the grocery store and you see somebody, just say, "Hey, how are you today?" If they're wearing a cool shirt, man, "Hey, I love that shirt. That's nice." Just start a little basic conversation, sometimes just a little interaction that is only done for the purpose of kindness and caring and loving, can be
Mm.
an amazing break from the rest of our world where it's all responsibility and need and everything else. Sometimes just to remind ourselves, not every time I open my mouth does it have to be something earth shattering. Sometimes it can simply be, let me talk about the Miami Dolphins, or let me talk
Yeah.
about this or that, or just something so just benign. Um, that's important.
I
And
love that.
the other thing I really really enjoy is learning to love silence.
Mm.
Um, you know, I spent most of my life being so afraid of being alone that I surrounded myself in chaos, and kids and wives and friends and work and all chaos and stuff. And I found anytime that I was not occupied with something, it was almost painful. Silence was
Hmm.
painful. And now there's times when I sit down and I realize I don't even realize 20 minutes went by and I just sat in silence because that's what I needed when I got home. I just sat down. It's almost like it's not quite staring at the wall because you may have to lock me up at that point, but maybe just kind of sitting in my chair and being able to look out the window and just kind of just looking at the light in the trees and the people moving around outside, but just silence and not anything. And that's a real peaceful thing when you could find yourself willing to do that and sit in silence, without
Mm.
any
That's a
without
skill.
purpose. It's without purpose too. There is no purpose to it.
Yep.
I don't, if you're trying to do it to relax and you're thinking about relaxing, the more you think about relaxing, the tenser you get. It's almost like just sitting down and just kind of just being and just saying, "This is me. This is my ass. This is my chair. That's all I know right at this moment. And that's it." There's nothing wrong with that. That's a great way to unplug for a few minutes. Don't do that at work
Ooh.
because they get concerned. Are you there?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Scott. That's a great thing that you bring up. It doesn't need any special um, equipment or timing or anything. When you find yourself having a few extra moments, sit in that silence and enjoy that silence for what it is. Whatever thoughts come by, okay, they come by, and no
Yeah.
judgment. I also loved what you said about talking to the person in line, maybe the person behind you in the grocery store, because human connection, and you just have that one connection for a few moments. They feel like they're seen. You feel like you're connected to another human being, and it might change the trajectory of their day that you said
Yes.
hi to them. Right? It could be something huge. Um, and of course, yeah, we get something out of it as well.
Absolutely. And there's no purpose to it. There's no ulterior motive other than connection. And
Yeah.
I know there's times when I could think back in my life and think of random moments where I met somebody for 5 minutes and just had the kindest, most genuine moment that I never saw him again, but there was something
Mm.
very sweet about it. There was something very nice about it and something very calming about it. Put this down, people. This thing, this cell phone thing.
Unplug.
We stand
Yeah.
in line amongst strangers, and a stranger is only somebody we haven't met yet. Okay, that's all a stranger is. It's not all.
Yeah.
Not everything is stranger danger, people. It's just somebody we haven't, and we're standing amongst all these opportunities to connect with a human being, to talk to somebody, to just unplug and plug into someone else for a moment. We have all that, and instead, what we're doing is we're here. We're doing our work. We're texting people that we already know. We're basically, I think most people, when they walk through stores and they stand in lines, they just call somebody just because they want to talk to somebody. There's no purpose behind it. Put it away then and talk to the person next to you. Talk to the
Mhm.
cashier. Talk to the cashier who's
Mhm.
making $8 an hour packing your groceries,
Yeah.
probably can't afford half the stuff you're buying. Maybe they got kids at home and they're struggling. And here we are, we're pushing our turkey and our lobster past them, and they're ringing it up, and we don't even have the courtesy of saying hello or how are you today. And
Mm.
that's really, I think that's the worst part of understanding about self-care and in doing that. Our self-care is reliant upon others too. We must connect with others. You learn about yourself through others. You learn new things. You find new adventures and all those things. If we had all the answers in our own head and we didn't need other people, then shit, there's no reason to even do podcasts. There's no reason to have TVs. There's no reason for literature. There's no reason for anything. We need outside influence. And sometimes the best way to unplug is to simply unplug from where you are and plug it in somewhere totally different for a moment and
Yeah.
just see what it's like over there. See what it's like. So I just find that as being primary importance is to connect with people. And
Yeah. It is. It is, because we're human beings. We are built to connect with people. We are built to
yeah,
um rely on people, and I don't mean rely on people now, but a baby can't survive on its own. It relies on someone, and part of
yeah,
that early infant connection with your mother or your father or both or other caregivers, it's so important. I can't imagine, and I mean, I live on my own, and I have for quite some time now. My son is here part of the time. Excuse me. But since I've been on my own, I've always had an animal with me. So first it was my cat, Nora, and then I also got a dog. And so even if I'm not connecting to people, I am connecting to another being, right? My connection with
right.
my dog. And Scott, you just recently adopted
I
a
adopted a
four-legged
cat,
fur baby.
Mr. Jonesy. Jonesy is my cat, and as much as there's times when Jonesy decides he wants to come up and sit on my chest in front of my face while I'm watching the news, and I'm like, no. But I find myself doing things that I wasn't doing when I was alone. Because like you, I've been alone for a period of time now, and I actually kind of enjoy having the space to myself. I do. Um, but I realize sometimes I go a whole day without saying a word. Now,
Yeah.
if I want to be some Tibetan monk or something, I'm sure that's something they do, and they have to do that for. But that's not me. I like to voice things and say things. So having Jonesy around gives me a creature to communicate with,
Mhm.
and um, and I got the coolest cat in the world who actually talks back to me, actually makes sounds. When I say Jonesy, the cat goes, "Brrr," and it's like, "Brrr," and from across the house you could hear it. And once I say his name, so
That's
that's
awesome.
cool. But we need connection with people. We need connection with the animals. You're an
Yeah.
animal person, that's fine. If you're not, that's fine. But self-care is not always about being alone. Sometimes self-care is about just opening yourself up to other people. And the more
Mhm.
practice we are at that, the nicer our communities will be.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, Mary. Do you know the people in your neighborhood?
I do.
Okay, so
I do.
you're actually a rarity because most people don't anymore. Most people don't know their
I
neighbors
know.
anymore. I remember growing up and
Yeah.
my going to my grandfather's house, and every guy and every husband would get together and talk about doing their lawns, and all the wives would get together and sit out back in suntan and do their things, and everybody knew each other. They played golf together and they had barbecues and all this stuff. I had somebody living next to me, and this is recently, living next to me for 7 years. I never met them or talked to them
Wow.
in 7 years. That's
Wow.
unfortunately the direction we go. We become isolated because we're reaching out to so many people with this. We forget to reach out to the people who are standing right next to us.
That's
So,
so true. You're so right. And I think especially for my neighborhood, although when I moved in here in 2014, I did make an effort to whoever I saw on the street while I was walking my dog, I would stop and talk to them. But COVID made a big difference because
mm,
my neighbors, yeah, we weren't allowed to go out and do this and go sit in a restaurant, but we were allowed to go outside. So we would stand and talk to each other from across the street. People would still walk their dogs. And because we were home and everybody was home and in the same kind of a situation, I got to know so many more of my neighbors during COVID because we
that's
were
cool.
all outside. It was very cool. Yeah,
That is so
in many
cool.
ways, it was a blessing. Mm.
And I found myself, I DJ in my neighborhood on once a month. I'll go
Yeah.
to we have a pool, and I'll bring my equipment out and I'll DJ and get people dance, and they get to know each other. So I get to know a lot of people, and it's kind of cool. But um, I want to wrap this up because I know
Hmm.
you're scheduled for some other things too. But you know, taking care of self-care takes many forms. Takes many forms, whether it's just increasing your mindfulness, which increases your productivity, which increases the amount of free time you have to really enjoy that mindfulness. Um, it's whether it's nature, art, um, and hey, making new friends, meeting people just for the sake of meeting people, not because you have an interior motive or because you have to meet them, just because you want to.
Hmm.
That's a great way to mentally exercise yourself and feel good. But there's so many things out there. I just encourage people. I know maybe you're out there listening, and for the last 30 or 40 years, all you've done is work your ass off, or all you've done is what you're expected to do in your responsibilities and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Maybe it's time for you. I'm not saying you give up. You don't give up. You don't walk away from your family and stuff unless that's a broken thing. But I'm not saying self care means screw you. I'm going to take care of me. It simply means I love you, but I need this time for me. And start taking that
Hmm.
time. It's never too late. It's never too late. If I was going to offer you, I know
Absolutely.
some people
I
say, well,
agree.
I'm too old. It's too late. I said, well, if I was going to give you $1 billion, would you tell me it's too late for you to accept that money? You could, if somebody is
Nope.
99 and a half years old and I say you can have $1 billion, they're going to take it because, they'll figure out something to do with it. But then you say, well, why don't you change your life for the better? Oh, it's too late. I've been doing this too long. Well, I think really what that means is you just don't want to work for it or you just don't want it bad enough. So listen, if you
Hmm.
want your life to be different and better, there is no time limit. There is no age limit. Just start doing it and start with taking care of yourself. Self care is number one. What do you think, Mary?
Yeah, self-care is not selfish. It's something that you need. It's a put it in your mind as a basic need, right? Even something like boredom. How about embracing boredom? If you ever have a chance to be bored, embrace it. Take that silent moment and just be bored for 3 minutes. It's okay. It actually opens up different parts of your brain so that you can receive different ideas. So, maybe you've got a high powered executive job, or you've got a different type of job that requires ultimate supreme focus, like if you're on a car line, working on a line that puts cars together,
Yeah,
where you need focus. If you can just stop that focus and be bored for a minute, that will make you better at no matter what job you're doing.
absolutely. And that's a great opportunity for your brain to speak up.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
sitting there and you're bored and you're like, you got nothing to do. And you sit in it for a few minutes and
Yeah.
see what pops into your head. Well, I've always thought about playing harmonica. Well, I've always thought about writing, maybe, and then listen to yourself. The ideas are in there. They'll come to you. Sometimes if we're so
Yeah.
busy, we don't hear the voices in our own head. Sometimes we got to be bored and be silent and listen to the voices. And if it says you've always wanted to try this, then get up off your ass and try it. There's
Mhm.
nothing better you could do for yourself than listen to the voice inside your head that's telling you what you want, and listen to it, follow it. Go dance with goats in the great Northwest or Northeast. Northeast.
Northeast Ontario. And,
I
you
gotta
know, we
show,
said
show
it's
that one
not
more.
selfish.
I gotta show that one more time. That is the cutest thing
Oh,
ever.
so cute.
And what was his name?
She walks with goats.
Ah, she walks with goats. I love it.
Yeah, that was awesome. And, you know, one thing that we didn't completely touch on was getting yourself help. So not just your physical health, like we were talking earlier, but therapy. Going to therapy is a form of self-care. It really is. Whether you're in a state that you really, really, really need it, or you know that you might be on a path where you need it, just go. Just go for one checkpoint. Just one. And have a talk with a licensed medical therapist. It can change your life. And looking at somebody else's perspectives as well in that therapy can open up your own too. So just wanted to add that one in and give a
Always
plug
good.
for therapy.
Always good.
Yeah.
If if you're in your car and it starts pulling to the right, you could drive it that way.
Yeah.
But most people would say, I think I'll get this fixed before it gets worse. If your brain starts pulling you in bad directions, or your thoughts are pulling you in directions that you don't like, or if there's like an overabundance of depressive moments, you
Yeah.
know, certainly Mary and I are not saying that if you're sad for 10 minutes, go get help.
Right.
No, what we're talking about is reoccurring issues of depressive disorder, or not even a disorder, just simply some anxiety or something that it seems to be reoccurring. Why not go take care of it? Just like the car that pulls to the right, you could drive it and you can make it work, but it makes life harder. So if you've
Hmm.
got something that's pulling at you, whether it's a sadness or a depression or an anxiety or anything like that, or a fear, if you got something that's pulling at you like that, you could probably live with it. But why be that tough on yourself? Go talk to somebody. Mary's absolutely right. Talk to somebody, and you might find out, you know what? I'm really okay. It's not that bad. Or you might find out, wow, I never thought I had to deal with that. Let me deal with it and move on and see what happens. But
Hmm.
give yourselves a break, people. Don't keep driving broken cars. Don't keep driving broken brains. Go get help. All right, with that, we are going to wrap things up. We're going to be back here next Thursday night, so I want to make sure everybody gets out and joins us. And Mary, final thoughts?
Final thoughts for today. I think, like as you mentioned earlier, Scott, you're not too old. It's not too late. And you deserve it. You deserve self-care. And
Absolutely.
add our podcast to your self-care routine.
That's right. And share it with others, because sharing is caring.
Yeah, it is.
And like I always say, folks, do one thing nice for someone else and two things nice for yourself today. And with that formula, I promise you'll never have a bad day. But for Scott J, Mary Kay, the Life Between All or Nothing podcast, we want to thank you for joining us. As always, we appreciate your support, and we'll catch you next time.